Lived in Arizona for a long time now, if you consider this very cold weather.
Under 70 is cold to me.
Yeah. The mornings are a little crisp.
Yes.
And by the way, Commissioner York is going to be about 30 minutes late, so we'll just start and he'll join us when he's available. So, but we will wait for Vice Chair Watchman.
Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are live, Commissioner Mio. Yeah, in fact, Mark, with the cold weather, I have my hot tea here to keep my hands warm.
This is cold weather.
Mark was complaining, and it's too early to put the heat on. So in the morning, you need, something warm.
Yes.
This is perfect weather. This is why we live in Arizona. What a
It
great,
is.
Oh, I agree with you on that. I'm good with
what
that.
a great state.
My daughter's in Wisconsin and was complaining it was 25 degrees. So I figure told her just wait till she gets here and then she'll be happy.
Although I think it's gonna cool off for Thanksgiving.
Well, 70 degrees is still warm when you live in a cold environment where she lives. So she'll be okay with 70.
That's perfect, actually, 70. So it looks like you've looked at the weather forecast for Thanksgiving week.
I have.
Sunny?
Sunny and nice weather, perfect, like in the 70s. So it should be a really great for anybody who's visiting Arizona. It'll be great, especially if they're coming from back east somewhere.
The commission could do a PR advertisement for the state.
It is true.
All right, Vice Chair Watchman is joining, I see, so we can get started as soon as I can see him. Oh, there he is. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, staff council,
Morning.
is everybody in place?
Yes, it looks like we're ready to go.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a beautiful day in Arizona. We'll get to it. Agenda item number 1, call to order and roll call. Oh, and by the way, I just want to make an announcement in case anybody didn't hear in the beginning. Commissioner York will join us. He's going to be about 30 minutes late, so we will get started and look forward to when he's able to dial in. So call to order and roll call, 1A, call for quorum. It is 8:02 a.m. on Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. I call this meeting of the Independent Redistricting Commission to order. For the record, the Executive Assistant, Valerie Newman, will be taking roll. When your name is called, please indicate you are present. If you're unable to respond verbally, we ask that you please type your name. Val.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair Watchman.
Present.
Commissioner Lerner.
Present.
Commissioner Meal.
Present.
Chairperson Newberg.
Present.
And for the record, also in attendance this morning is Executive Director Brian Schmidt, Deputy Director Lori Van Haren, Public Information Officer Michelle Crank, Community Outreach Coordinators Marie Chappell and Alex Pena. From our legal team, we have Brett Johnson and Eric Spencer from Snell and Wilmer. And from Ballard Spar, we have Roy Herrera and Daniel Ariano. And our mapping consultants, we have Mark Flahan from Timmins, Doug Johnson, and Ivy Beller-Sikansky from NDC Research. And our transcriptionist today is Debbie Wilkes. That's everyone.
Thank you, Val. Please note for the minutes that a quorum is present. Agenda item 1B, call for notice. Val, was the notice and agenda for the commission meeting properly posted 48 hours in advance of today's meeting?
Yes, it was, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We'll move to agenda item 2, approval of minutes from November 9th, 2021. We have our general session. Is there any discussion on the minutes from the general session from last week, the business meeting of last Tuesday? If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the general session minutes from November 9th, 2021.
Vice Chair Watchman moves to approve the minutes for the general session for November 9th.
Commissioner Meal seconds.
If no further discussion, Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Please note for the minutes that Commissioner York has joined at 8:04, much earlier than expected. Good morning, Commissioner York. We are approving the general session minutes from November 9th, if you would like to weigh in with a vote.
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Newberg is an aye. And I believe I got everybody. So with that, the minutes are approved 5-0. We will move to agenda item number 3, opportunity for public comments. Public comment will now open for a minimum of 30 minutes and remain open until the adjournment of the meeting. Comments will only be accepted electronically in writing on the link provided in the notice and agenda for this public meeting and will be limited to 3,000 characters. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. With that, we'll move to agenda item number 4, discussion of public comments received prior to today's meeting. I will open it up to my colleagues.
I would suggest that we're getting very good feedback from the public. The meetings have been very well attended. The comments have been constructive and productive. I think it has been very helpful, and I thank the public for their participation and ask for their continued participation.
Yeah, ditto. I'm remarkably proud of our state. The constructiveness, the focus, the civility, the overwhelming majority of the time. We have a passionate, engaged, educated state, and it's truly, I said it during our initial listening tour. It's truly an honor to participate in the hearings and to witness and be part of this democratic process. So thank you to everybody who's tuning in, and to those who don't know how to tune in or aren't interested or can't for various reasons. We're going to redistrict for you as well. If there are no other comments on public comment, we will move to agenda item number 5, update for mapping team. We have 2 items. First, an update on polarization data, and then B, which the commissioners will be highly involved with, review of the draft maps, an opportunity for discussion regarding the draft map adherence to the constitutional criteria. So at this point, I will turn it over to Doug to take it away.
Yeah. Mark, do you have anything to say first? Or?
Yeah, give me one second. Good morning, everyone. I think tying on to your guys' public comments section, I have some stats for you. As of right now, we have 867 accounts in the redistricting system. So that's 867 people made accounts. To date, we have 191 submitted plans into the system that have been published out to the hub. And in the hub's public comment survey, we've received to date 1,004 records. So we've received 1,004 public comments coming back through that vehicle. So I just wanted to let you guys know what the current numbers are. I think we're doing extremely well there. So unless there's any questions on those, I can turn it back over to Doug to talk about polarization.
So I'll jump in. So we've had as we somewhat expected, a bit of an adventure figuring out the primary election data, since that was a realm we hadn't cleaned up before. But actually, just got very good news yesterday from the team working on it that they think they have all the quirks worked out. And Dr. Hanley emailed back yesterday saying she doesn't see any red flags in the data they sent her. So we don't have her table of results for you today, but hopefully it'll be very shortly.
Okay, thank you. But so Doug, we will talk later this morning. We're unlikely to have a business meeting next Tuesday during the week of Thanksgiving, given that we have sufficient time to do business today and in 2 weeks. It's great that the data is available. We may not be able to publicly come together and get a briefing on the data and review it together. But if the commissioners can get the data, and as you say, there weren't any red flags, that's fabulous. We'd like to dive into that a little bit just as we're approaching deliberation for our own comforts and as we're processing all the decisions that we're about to be making.
Actually, you raise a great point. I should clarify. By red flags, I mean data that didn't look wrong. So it didn't. It
So
wasn't.
you're not interpreting data. Okay.
I wasn't characterizing the findings at all because we don't have those. But yes, the idea is that we'll send it off to you. Once legal is reviewed, we'll send it off to all of you and actually post it for the public as soon as we can. We certainly won't wait for the 30th, and then we'll have a group discussion, answer any questions you have on the 30th.
Excellent. Thank you.
Doug, could I ask you to remind us and the public which primary elections you're using?
So this is part of our challenge, was going through and looking at which primary elections would be useful to the analysis. Since we're looking at proposed districts, not at existing districts, that really rules out looking at past legislative or congressional elections, because obviously the proposed districts would only overlap with parts of the old districts, and so you'd only have data from part of your district. So we're really limited to statewide elections. And in talking with Dr. Hanley, the numbers of Latinos voting in Republican and other primaries other than the Democratic primary are really not sufficient to generate any useful data or readings. So we're really focusing on Democratic primaries, Democratic statewide primaries. And the only one where in recent years where there was a Latino candidate versus a white candidate was the 2018 primary. There was one other one for US Senate, but they came up in the candidate list, but turned out the Latino candidate there was a write-in who got less than 1,000 votes statewide. So that wasn't going to generate any useful data for us. There also was a statewide corporation commission election. The challenge is that multi-candidate elections, like the corporation commission, are tough. That you get lots of noise in the data, and they're tough to pull any useful findings out of. So we're focused on getting that 2018 governor's race processed and defined what the results of that are, and hopefully that will give us clear results and a clear guide to voting patterns, and we'll figure out where to go from there if it doesn't.
Can I follow up with so do you think that one election can really give us much guidance versus having a few to do some comparisons on? Because one election could be an outlier. I mean, we don't know, but I guess I know that the struggle in finding elections, I totally understand that. I'm just wondering how confident you are that a single election can really give us some valid data versus having had several. And I know you're making every effort, but if you could give me your thoughts on that.
Well, we can't change who's run in the past elections, right? So we don't have any control over what elections fall into the most useful category, certainly. You know, so thankfully there are statistical measures of reliability and accuracy built into these studies, and so we will get some sense of that from this election, and we'll get a sense of what the results are. But hopefully it'll be clear and generate good results, because otherwise we venture into the very gray areas of trying to suss out data from either multi-candidate elections or from white versus white, or trying to figure out Latino polarization from a Latino point of view in an election that involved a white and a Middle Eastern candidate. Yeah, these kinds of things are realms we're hoping we don't need to go into.
But that also speaks to the importance of the timeliness of the report, even if we're not going to have a business meeting, so that if there are those kinds of red flags,
Right.
That then we have to mine deeper into data, that there's sufficient time to do so per Commissioner Lerner's, concerns.
Yes, and I think the commission's instruction is very clear. So we'll analyze the data, work with legal on their interpretation of it, and then if we need to, leap into some other realm as soon as we get the analysis and do. We won't wait for the 30th to get additional direction from me.
Okay. And of course, you're still focusing on general elections as much as you can, not just primary elections.
Right, we're still running the same general elections, definitely. This is just adding to that pool of data.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. We're anxiously awaiting. We're looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else, or should we leap into the next item?
Please proceed.
All right, Doug, let me share my screen.
Okay.
So we can start with the congressional.
Yep. Returning to our summary and review of data on the official draft congressional and legislative maps. Last time we did congressional districts 1 through 3. We're going to leap in and try to wrap up the rest of them, go through all 4 through 9 here today. So Mark's got it there on the screen. Thank you, Mark. So we've got District 4 is again all in Maricopa County. It's really a Ahwatukee, Tempe, Mesa, South Scottsdale, and Salt River Reservation district. By the numbers, it is it's one person over the ideal, so it is population balanced at 0.00%. By the citizen voting age percentage numbers, it's 69% non-Hispanic white, so overwhelmingly white. The largest of the other groups is Hispanics and Latinos at 18%, African Americans at 6%, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders at 4%, and non-Hispanic Native Americans are 3% of citizen voting age population and 2% of the single race voting age population. On the competitive scale, this is a competitive district. Its vote spread is 5.6%, so it's within our 7% competitive range, though not our 4% highly competitive range. And on swing votes, it also counts as competitive. The Democratic candidate won 8 of the elections, and the Republican won 1 of the elections. With the low Latino percentage of citizen voting age population, we're not tracking this district for Voting Rights Act compliance. But the one, actually, coincidentally, the one Republican win is the 2018 governor's race, where the Democratic candidate got 46% of the vote. On a compactness score, Because this is in urban Maricopa County, its perimeter and area scores are low. Its REAC score is 0.29. The convex hull skull is the convex hull score is 0.72%. The Groffman score is 6.24. Schwartzberg is 1.76, and Polsby-Popper is 0.32. Moving to District 5. So
I think it might make sense for us to just be able to talk about each of them as we go along.
sure.
Would that work for the commissioners? Okay. Comments on District 4, congressional. I think it does a reasonable job on all criteria. I think it's reasonably compact and contiguous. It's competitive. Obviously, the population is spot on. One thing that I think, you know, doesn't fit as well that we've been hearing from the public is maybe trying to do a better job with honoring city, town lines, boundaries. You know, it's part of the Constitution, and so when we reconvene, but our in terms of the specific district, I'd say that's probably, you know, the weakness when I look at it. And any other comments or thoughts? Okay. And the fact that it's competitive is a great, you know, bonus.
Yeah. So moving just next door to also largely in Mesa to District 5. Again, we've got a Maricopa County district. This includes the Maricopa County portion of Apache Junction, parts of Chandler, Gilbert, Mesa, Queen Creek, Sun Lakes. Oh, it does. I'm sorry, it has a little bit of Pinal County as well. My notes are formatted wrong. And so it's got Gold Canyon, Queen Creek, and parts of Gold Canyon, Queen Creek, and Santan Valley in it as well. In terms of population, again, we're right at balance. It's one person over the ideal. It's 0.00% deviation. And citizen voting age population, it's again 75% non-Hispanic white. The largest of the non-white groups is Hispanic or Latino at 15% of citizen voting age population. Black or African American is 4%. Asian American and Pacific Islander is 5%. And non-Hispanic Native Americans are 1% of citizen voting age population, and also 1% of single race voting age population. On competitiveness front, this district is not in our competitive range. It's at 14.7% vote spread. And on the swing votes, it's a 9-0 Republican seat. And again, because of the citizen voting age population numbers, we're not tracking this for voting rights purposes. In terms of compactness, again, an urban Maricopa, a little bit of Pinal seat, very, very low on the area and perimeter scores. The REAC test is 0.51. The convex hull is again 0.72, just like last district. The Groffman score is 5.55. Schwartzberg is 1.57, and Polsby-Popper is 0.41. Any questions or comments about District 5?
I think again it meets the you know, key constitutional criteria, compact, contiguous. I think, you know, the lack of competitiveness is in deference to you know, keeping communities of interest together. I had the same comment about District 4. I think maybe with adjustments, we could do a better job with, city lines and with, keeping communities of interest together. But as is, I think it meets criteria.
There's no other comments. I'll jump into District 6. Okay. So now we leave Maricopa and go down to the southeastern corner of the state. So as you can see, District 6 is the yellow district on the screen. We're getting all of Greenlee County. Oops. All of Graham County except for the reservation territory. All of Cochise County. And then parts of Pinal and Pima County. So in Pinal County, we're getting everything from Casa Grande to Coolidge, Florence, Oracle, Red Rock, and Saddlebrook. In Pinal County, we're getting Avra Valley, Casas Adobes, Catalina and Catalina Foothills, Marana, Oro Valley, Rincon Valley, Tanque Verde, Tucson, Vail, essentially the eastern and northeastern portions of the county. Statistically, we're again 1% over ideal, so we're at 0.00% deviation. In terms of citizen voting age population, we're at 22% Hispanic or Latino, 69% non-Hispanic white, 3% non-Hispanic Black and Asian American, Asian American and Pacific Islander. Or those two categories are 3% each of citizen voting age population. 2% of citizen voting age population are non-Hispanic Native Americans, and 1% of the single race voting age population is Native American. This district is highly competitive. It's at 1.9% on our competitive scale, so that is within our 4% highly competitive range. And it has a strong tendency to swing. Of the 9 elections we're tracking, 6 of them were won by the Democrat and 3 by the Republican. And again, with 22% of CVAP, we're not looking at this as a Voting Rights Act district. But on the swing scale, the Republican did win the 2018 election, and the Democrat Latino candidate won the Attorney General's 2018 election. On compactness scores, as this is a more rural district, its area and perimeter scores are much higher than the 2 we just looked at. They were urban Maricopa districts. On the REOC score, it's 0.37. Convex Hull, it's 0.67. Groffman score is 7.46. Schwartzberg 2.11, and Polsby Popper is 0.23. Those scores are somewhat lower than the districts we were looking at before. Most of that is driven by the way that the district picks up the freeway corridor coming out of Marana and going up along the freeway corridor into Pinal County, which is an odd shape, but clearly picking up communities associated with the freeway or along the freeway. Any questions about District 6?
I think, Doug, you did a great job of really acknowledging kind of the trade-offs that, although it may be less compact and contiguous, that there's, appropriate justification with, keeping communities of interest along major, highway corridors and things like that. And maybe we can take a look at trying to clean it up a little bit to improve it, but, there is a rationale for it. And I'd also like, and we've already, discussed that particularly around the Tucson area, maybe there's some further adjusting to better represent communities of interest between District 6 and 7. but those are small, adjustments that don't affect the overall assessment of meeting constitutional criteria. And it's perfectly competitive. Anybody want to add anything? Okay. 7.
Okay. Okay. District 7, as you can see on the map, goes from Santa Cruz County into Tucson, up to southwestern Pinal County, southern Maricopa County, and then over into Yuma County. In Maricopa, well, I should say in Pinal, we're mainly getting the Tohono O'odham community, the reservation lands. In Maricopa, we're getting Gila Bend, small towns of I may mispronounce this, Kaka and Theba, and then the southern end of Buckeye, really the state prison end is the main population at that end of Buckeye. Then in Pima County, obviously we're getting a large portion of Tucson, getting South Tucson. Just picking up some of the larger numbers: Drexel Heights, Flowing Wells, Green Valley, Sarita. I mentioned South Tucson, Tucson Estates, Tucson Mountains, and as I mentioned, the Tohono O'odham and the Pasquayaki tribal reservation that borders it over by Tucson. In Pinal County, I mentioned it's getting the reservation. It's also getting Eloy and Arizona City. And then over in Yuma County, we're getting Fortuna Foothills, San Luis, Somerton, most of Wilton, and a large portion of the city of Yuma. And there, so we end up with about 180,000 people coming from Yuma County into this district. By the numbers, we're again off just by one person, so 0.00% deviation. Citizen voting age population. This is by citizen voting age population, this is a plurality Latino seat. It is at 47% of citizen voting age population is Latino. 43% is non-Hispanic white. 4% is Black or African American. 2% is Asian or Pacific Islander. And while this does have as I mentioned, a significant Native American population in terms of a number of well-known reservations and their populations in it, in terms of the numbers, it's fairly low at 4% of citizen voting age population, or 3% of the single race voting age population is non-Hispanic Native American. On a competitive scale, it's at 20% for its vote spread, and it does not swing in the 9 elections we're looking at. They're all Democratic wins. This is a Voting Rights Act sensitive seat at 47% Latino and plurality Latino, and it does perform. So it is an effective district by both of our measures, being the Democratic governor's election of 2018, the Latino Democratic candidate won with 53.3%. And in the Attorney General's race in 2018, the Latino Democratic candidate won with 60.4%. So it is an effective district by our measures. Compactness. Sorry, I almost skipped over that. In compactness, this is obviously a very large geographic district. So its perimeter and area scores are quite high. On the REACT score, it's 0.29. Convex hull, it's 0.82. Groffman, it's 6.51. Schwartzberg, it's 1.84. And Polsby-Popper is at 0.3. Any questions about District 7?
I think think it's another example of compromise and compactness and contiguity for communities of interest in here. It's a majority minority district that, based on at least, the data we're looking at now. I think it's also helpful for the southern three Native American tribes to, have a member, an elected leader to represent their interests. So I think it meets criteria, and we can improve it with maybe, adjusting maybe the Yuma area a little bit to honor communities of interest. There's ideas about how to make it even better, but I think it meets criteria.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll take a leap back to Maricopa for District 8. So District 8 is entirely in Maricopa County. It consists of portions of Glendale, Peoria, and Phoenix. So a geographically much more easily described district. Population-wise, it is exactly at the desired population, so 0 deviation and 0.00% deviation. On citizen voting age population, it is 20% Hispanic or Latino, 68% non-Hispanic white, 6% Black or African American, 4% Asian American or Pacific Islander, and 2% Native American. And looking at single race voting age population, it's 1% Native American. It is a competitive district at 4.1% on the vote spread. It's right on our border of highly competitive versus competitive, but definitely competitive. And also on the swing score, it had 3 wins by the Democratic Party and 6 wins by the Republican Party, so it swung 3 different elections. With the citizen voting age Latino numbers being only at 20%, it's not a district we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. And on compactness, again, we're back in urban Maricopa, so the area and perimeter scores are going to be quite low. The REAC score is 0.38. Convex hull is 0.73. Groffman is 6.77. Schwartzberg is 1.91. And Polsby-Popper is 0.27. As you look at the district, as we go back to the map, it's worth noting there's a number of kind of zigs and zags, especially on the western edge of it. Those are all following city borders. So the little U shape in the top, that's the shape of the Peoria city border. The little foot about halfway up the western side, going over off the edge is again, that's following the city border of Peoria. So so if people are wondering why there are zigs and zags and not a straight line, it's because it's following the city lines. Any questions or comments about District 8?
I think it does a great job of meeting all criteria, equal population, compact, contiguous, communities of interest, competitive. On the communities of interest front, the only thing that I'd say is if you're looking at Peoria, if you looked at the city of Phoenix instead, I think you'll see that there may be adjustments to 8 and 1. Just Phoenix is pretty split up, in terms of having an elected leader really represent the city. So that's something to look at, but the district meets criteria. But like many of the other districts, I think, that doesn't mean that the commissioners can't maybe try to improve a community of interest, lines.
If there's no other comments or questions, we'll jump to the final district, Congressional District 9. This is another mix of rural and an urban population. You can see it's the river counties, Mojave, La Paz, and the northern portion of Yuma, and then coming over into Maricopa County. In Yuma, it's getting, again, Fortuna foothills are divided, so it's got a good portion of that. It's got a small piece of the city of Yuma, and then a couple thousand of rural rural Yuma County residents. It has all of La Paz County, and it has all of Mojave County except for the Hualapai and Kaibab reservations. And there's a little bit of tribal land next to the Hualapai reservation that's not populated. That's not in this district. In Maricopa County, we're looking at Avondale, a small piece of Avondale, almost all of Buckeye, El Mirage, a piece, really the western end up by the Air Force Base of Glendale, Goodyear, Litchfield Park, Sun City West, all of Surprise, including Sun City Grand, Wickenburg, the Maricopa portion of Wickenburg, Whitman, and Youngtown. In population numbers, it's perfectly balanced right at the ideal, so 0 deviation and 0.00%. In citizen voting age population, it's at 17% Latino or Hispanic, 75% non-Hispanic white, 4% Black or African American, 2% Asian American or Pacific Islander, and 2% Native American. In single race voting age population, it's 1% Native American. On a competitiveness score, this is not a competitive district. Its vote spread is 27%. And the there's no swing elections. The Republican candidate won all 9 of the elections. We're following for that. And with the citizen voting age population score, we're not tracking this district for effectiveness from a voting rights perspective. On compactness scores, this is, again, a mix of a urban West Valley and large rural area. So its area and perimeter are quite high. The REOC score is 0.29%. Convex Hull is 0.61. Groffman is 8.82. Schwartzberg is 2.49. And Polsby Popper is at 0.16. So any questions or comments about Congressional District 9?
I think District 9 is a great example of the challenges we have in Arizona, that the shapes of the non-urban districts often aren't as clean in order to capture, communities of interest in non-populated areas. And I think it's just consistent with that. And so I think we've done a good job of maximizing, the 6 criteria to the extent possible. Again, it's, trying to achieve competitiveness would cause detriment to the ability of communities of interest in these rural areas to be represented. So I think we've balanced the needs well.
Yeah. We did have a couple of comments from the public at different hearings about West Valley not wanting to be in a rural district. It's worth noting, as the chair just mentioned, this is a long ongoing challenge for decades of redistricting. 68% of District 9's population is in Maricopa County. So it is, from a population voters perspective, it's definitely a Maricopa County district that has the rural areas making up the other 32 or so percent. So they're a significant voice, but they're not a majority by any means. Okay. there's no other comments, we can jump to the legislative maps.
All right, let me load those.
Doug, would you be able to, or Mark, send us those data sheets that you've been showing? Now that we've reviewed all of those for the CDs? Or did you already post them somewhere?
I can send them over to you.
Thank you.
I can also post them.
Okay, we covered districts 1 through 7 last time. We're gonna see if we can get through 8 through 20 this time. So we'll start with District 8. We're again entirely in Maricopa County with this one. We're looking at Tempe, Scottsdale, and the Salt River Reservation. On the numbers, this district is currently drawn a little short of the target population. It's about just under 9,000 people short, or 3.77%. On citizen voting age population, it's 16% Hispanic or Latino, 70% non-Hispanic white, 6% non-Hispanic Black or African American, 4% Asian American or Pacific Islander, and 4% Native American. By single race voting age population, it's at 3% non-Hispanic Native American. Competitive scale, it's not a competitive district. It's vote spreads at 19.8%. And on the 9 elections we're analyzing for swing, the Democratic candidate won all 9. Given the low citizen voting age population, it's not a district we are tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. On the compactness scores, again, it's an urban district. The area and perimeter scores are very low. The REOC score is 0.3. The convex hull skull is 0.6. The Groffman is 6.81. Schwartzberg is 1.92. And Polsby Popper is 0.27. Any comments or questions about this district?
Similar to the congressional map, I'll start with LD8, but it'll, have ripple effects through, the rest of Mesa and Gilbert. I think we've done a great job on the 6 criteria. The one area that I think that we can improve on has to do, again, with respecting city lines. So if you, put up Scottsdale on the legislative map, it's divided quite a bit. So I think we could potentially unify certain areas of Scottsdale a little more without compromising the other criteria. But small adjustments.
Okay. Let's jump into District 9 then. Now we're moving down in the East Valley. So District 9, you can see it's there we go. So overwhelming Mesa, it does have a slice of Tempe, following I believe that's the freeway. And then it has a small piece of Chandler and a big piece of Gilbert. You can see there. On the population numbers, we are just short of ideal. It's about 1,800 people short of the ideal population, or 0.79% short. In terms of citizen voting age population, the Hispanics and Latinos are right at 25%. Non-Hispanic white is at 61%. Black or African American is 6%. Asian Americans 3%. Non-Hispanic Native Americans are 4% of citizen voting age population, and non-Hispanic Native Americans are 3% of single race voting age population. On a competitive spread, this is a competitive district at 6.8%. It's in the commission's defined 7% range, so it's competitive, but not in the 4% highly competitive range. And by swing elections, it also has one swing election. So the Democratic candidates won 8 of the elections we're looking at, and Republican won 1. It's not a race that we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness, but the 2018 governor's election is the one of those 9 elections that the Republican candidate won. The Democratic candidate got 47%, and the Democratic Latino candidate did win the Attorney General's election that year. Moving to compactness data. Again, a highly urbanized, very densely populated district. The polygon score is among the lowest in the state in terms of area and in terms of perimeter. The REAC score is 0.57. The convex hull score is 0.89. Rothman score is 4.43. Schwartzberg is 1.25. And Polsby-Popper is 0.64. So as you, no surprise, as you look at this district, it comes out quite well on the compactness scores. Any questions or comments about District 9?
I think it's, again, meets all criteria. I think, looking at the areas that we can improve, looking at, again, mapping Gilbert, we'll see that Gilbert, just all of the East Valley, trying to be more sensitive to the city lines. And the other thing that I'd like to just ensure is that the district is maximizing the Latino community and the Asian community to do a deeper dive in where those pockets are. That's just part of the public comment that we've been hearing. But the district does a great job with the criteria.
Okay. If there's no other comments, we'll move just a few steps east to District 10. And there we go. Oh. And as you can see on the map, District 10 is a heavily Mesa district. It does have a piece of the north end of Gilbert in there, and the rest of it is all Mesa. Looking at the numbers, it's a little short. It's about just over 5,900 people short of the ideal, or 2.49%. Under the ideal. In terms of citizen voting age population, we're at 13% Latino or Hispanic, 79% non-Hispanic white, 4% non-Hispanic Black, 2% non-Hispanic Asian American or Pacific Islander, and 2% non-Hispanic Native American. By single race voting age population, we're at 1% non-Hispanic Native American. This district does not count as competitive. Its vote spread is 21.3%, and the Republican candidate won all 9 of the elections we're looking at for swing elections. And it's not a district we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. On the compactness scores, again, an urban district, this scores well on the area and perimeter scores. On REAC, it's a 0.49. Convex hull, it's a 0.84. Rothman, it's 4.92. Schwartzberg, 1.39. And Polsby-Popper, 0.52. And again, as you look at it, you can see it's scoring well on the competitiveness scores. Any comments or questions?
I read it. My comment about keeping the Eastern Valley cities a little bit more whole goes for all of these legislative districts, although the size of Mesa will make it difficult. But we could clean up some of this to respect the city lines a little more with all of the Southeast Valley.
Okay, let's jump to District 11. So with this, we move out of the East Valley and into South Phoenix. You can see we're getting a Phoenix and Guadalupe district here, which also brings in South Mountain. So it's got the little city of Guadalupe, and then all the rest of the population is Phoenix. On the deviation scores, this one is actually a little overpopulated. It's by about 9,700 people, or 4.08%. My citizen voting age population, it's actually just under majority Latino. It's at 49%, but a big plurality at 49%. The next largest group is white at 20 points back at 27%. And then this by far is our largest African-American or Black district, with the non-Hispanic Black or African-American population being 19% of the citizen voting age population. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are another 3% of citizen voting age population, and the Native American population is also 3%. By single race voting age population, Native Americans are 2% in this district. It is not competitive with a 54% vote spread, and it does not have any swing elections. It's a 9-0 Democratic wins on our 9 swing elections. This is a district, obviously, that we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness, and yes, it certainly performs. The Democratic Latino candidate for governor got 70.7% of the vote in 2018, and the Democratic Latino candidate for Attorney General got 76% of the vote in the 2018 election. So definitely performs. On compactness scores, again, it's another urban, densely populated district. So its area and perimeter scores are both low. On REOC, it's 0.54. On convex hull, it's 0.85. Groffman at 4.85. Schwartzberg at 1.37. And by Polsby-Popper, it's 0.53. So it's also, as you look at it, it's a highly compact district, right up there in the scores with the 2 Mesa districts we're just looking at. Any comments or questions about District 11?
District 11 makes sense for all the reasons you clarified. It gives the Latino community representation, and the African American community seems to be a little bit more spread out, but this is an area where it's more of a center, and I think it captures that community well. The South Mountain border, it's a very different community of interest in District 12. So in addition to the physical barrier, more importantly, it's separating communities of interest. I think it does a good job.
Which then takes us into District 12. So just briefly looking at the map, this is the Ahwatukee region of Phoenix. We do get the Kyrene School District is united in this district, so it does go down into the Gila River Reservation to pick up the portion that is in Kyrene, and then it gets some of Tempe and extends into the East Valley. So by the numbers, city by city, it's Chandler. Actually, I believe Chandler is the biggest. Yes, Chandler is the biggest population count by city. It also has a large portion of Gilbert, and obviously a lot of population from Phoenix. And then you can see, past the break on the report that Mark has on the screen, about 36,000 people from Tempe as well. So moving over to the demographics, District 12, we're overpopulated by about 8,450 or 3.55%. Citizen voting age population, we're at 15% Latino or Hispanic, 71% non-Hispanic white, 6% Black or African American, 6% Asian American or Pacific Islander, 2% Native American. By single race voting age population, we're also at 2% Native American. This district on the vote spread does not fall in our defined competitive ranges, but it is close. It's at 9.7% on the vote spread, and it does have a swing election. So by the swing election scores, this is a competitive district with the Democrats winning 8 of the elections and the Republicans winning 1. With the citizen voting age scores, we're not tracking this for effectiveness, and it turns out the one Republican win is the 2018 governor's race. On compactness scores, we're at, again, it's an urban district, so low area and perimeter scores. REOC is 0.32, Convex Hull 0.72, Groffman 5.9, Schwartzberg 1.66, and Polsby Poppers at 0.36. Any comments or questions about District 12?
I think we've heard quite a bit of feedback about whether you want to call it a thumb or a panhandle. I think the district does an excellent job on the criteria, and the fact that it approaches competitiveness is a bonus. There are communities of interest within that strip that I think, you know, need to be fixed up a little bit. That's the weakness, but again, these are minor adjustments and doesn't really compromise its adherence to the 6 constitutional criteria.
And it's a good lead into as close to a perfectly square district as we get in the entire map. So part of the reason for the panhandle is the compactness of District 12, District 13. So let's jump into that. There we go. So as you can see from the report, this is an entirely Maricopa County district that consists of Chandler, Gilbert, and then the Sun Lakes community. So, and as you can see, almost perfectly square. In terms of the population numbers, it's a little bit overpopulated at 4,800 over the ideal, which is 2.02% over. The citizen voting age population numbers, this is a 70% white, non-Hispanic white district. Of the remainder, 15% is Hispanic or Latino, 5% is Black or African American, 8% Asian American, and 1% Native American by both citizen voting age population and single race VAP. This is a competitive district. Its vote spread is 4.4%, so just by decimal points outside of our highly competitive range, but well within our 7% competitive range. And it does have a swing election. So the Republicans won 8 elections. The Democratic candidate won 1 of the elections in this district. So it does have a swing score that triggers it as competitive by that measure as well. Compactness wise, it's urban East Valley, so area and perimeter scores are very low. The REOC score is 0.62. Convex Hull is 0.99, almost a full 1. The Groffman score is 4.01, and Schwartzberg is 1.13, and Polsby Popper is 0.78. So going through, this is by most measures our most compact district in the map. Any comments or questions?
I think we approve of this district. I think it meets all 6 criteria quite well.
Okay, then we'll move east to District 14, which is also very close to a square. Not quite as close as 13, but very close itself. This does use the county line as its southern and eastern border, so it's all Maricopa County. It is population from Gilbert, from Mesa, and from Queen Creek, the Maricopa County portion of Queen Creek. So, jumping into the numbers here. 14, we're at about 1,500 overpopulated, or 0.66%. So we're pretty close on the population count at less than 1% deviation. Citizen voting age population, again, we're 75% white, non-Hispanic white, 15% Hispanic or Latino by CVAP, 4% Black or African American, 5% Asian American and Pacific Islander, and 1% Native American by both citizen voting age population and single race voting age population. On competitiveness, this is not a competitive district at 24.5% vote spread, and it does not have any swing elections. It's also not a district we're tracking for voting rights act effectiveness. On compactness, again, very low area and perimeter scores given its urban densely packed nature. REACT score is 0.58, convex hull is 0.92, Groffman 4.31, Schwartzberg 1.22, and Poulsby Popper 0.68. So not quite as almost perfectly square as the previous district, but awfully darn close as well. Any comments or questions?
I think this is another example of where we see a lack of competitiveness due to the importance of keeping communities of interest together. You know, it's a lot of like-minded people, and it works quite well for that community. So I think it meets the criteria very well. With the caveat that I mentioned earlier, you know, trying to adjust maybe small lines to keep cities together in the East Valley as much as possible.
Okay. There's no other comments. We'll zoom out a little bit, see District 15. So in this case, we're blending Maricopa and Pinal County territory. Oh, there we go. In Maricopa, we're getting Apache Junction and Mesa population. In Pinal, we're getting the rest of getting Apache Junction and Queen Creek and Santan Valley. And there's 1 0 population piece of Florence in there as well. So it's a lot of the communities that are right along the Maricopa border, obviously in Pinal County. Population-wise, it's short by 5,900 or 2.48% of the ideal population. In terms of citizen voting age population, we're at 77% non-Hispanic white, 16% Hispanic or Latino, 3% Black or African American, and 2% each for Asian, Pacific Islander, and for non-Hispanic Native American. And then by single race voting age population, we're at 1% non-Hispanic Native American. Competitiveness score, it's not a competitive district at 23.5%. And in none of the 9 elections that we're looking at did it swing. The Republican candidate won all 9. And we're not tracking this for voting rights act effectiveness. Compactness scores, again, a fairly densely populated district. Its area and perimeter scores are relatively low, although not as low as its neighbors to the fully in the East Valley. REOC score is 0.39, convex hull is 0.71, Groffman is 6.48, Schwartzberg is 1.83, and Poulsby Popper is 0.3. Any comments or questions about District 15?
Again, I think it meets criteria very well. The lack of competitiveness is understandable regarding communities of interest. I think along the communities of interest line, I think we could make some adjustments to do a better job of keeping some communities of interest together. For example, just looking at Queen Creek and Santan, but again, minor adjustments that just go to, perfecting adhering to the constitutional criteria rather than meeting criteria. There's just small adjustments that can make it even better.
Okay, we'll jump to District 16 then. There we go. Okay, so District 16, as you can see by the report that Mark has on the screen, it starts in Maricopa County with a little bit of Buckeye, a little bit of Gila Crossing population. Then we get into Maricopa Colony and the St. John's community in Maricopa County, not the better known St. John's out east. In Pinal County, we're then getting Avra Valley, Picture Rocks. Oh,
Pima County.
Yeah, I jumped my counties there. In Pima County, we're getting Avra Valley, Picture Rocks, a piece of Tucson Estates, and Tucson Mountains area. In Pinal, we're getting the Action Village, Arizona City, Blackwater, Casablanca, Casa Grande, Coolidge, Eloy, Goodyear Village, all of the community of Maricopa. I won't go through all these, but Sacaton is the largest of the last list of the small communities in there. So we are getting Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima County population in District 16. By the numbers, it's a little short at about 3,300 short, or 1.39%. Citizen voting age population, it's 29% Hispanic or Latino, 54% non-Hispanic white, 6% non-Hispanic Black or African American, 2% Asian American and Pacific Islander, and 8% non-Hispanic Native American by CVAP, and 6% non-Hispanic Native American by single race voting age population. This is a competitive district. At 4.2% vote spread, it's just outside, literally 0.2% outside our highly competitive range, and well within our 7% competitive range. It does not, however, have a swing election in the 9 elections we're looking at. And it's not a district we're tracking for voting rights effectiveness. As we are getting out to a more rural district, our area and perimeter scores have gone up. By the REOC test, it's 0.36 on compactness. Convex Hull is 0.74. Groffman is 8.2. Schwartzberg is 2.31. And Polsby Popper is 0.19%. Any questions or comments about District 16?
I'm presuming from my colleagues that the silence implies that you feel that it meets criteria. Should we just presume for the sake of record that silence means approval?
I think all of us think that these do meet the constitutional criteria, and we recognize that this exercise is to go through and really to confirm and check that. All of us have ideas and thoughts, and we're hearing more from the public on things we're going to want to bring up when we revisit the maps and try to look at the final maps. But that doesn't change that I think we all are in agreement that these meet the constitutional criteria.
Thank you for that clarification. Right. If anybody has a different perception, please state.
Madam Chair, this is just a review according to the agenda, and that's how I'm taking it. So I agree with Commissioner Mill. This is in terms of approval or consideration, we're not there yet. So, but good overview. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
Right, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that what Commissioner Meal clarified is that his silence implies that he believes that it meets constitutional criteria. It does not mean that he doesn't have ideas for improvement and change, as we all do, and that's not what we're getting into here, although I'm alluding to some things. But you know, if your silence means anything other than you believe that it fulfills the basic constitutional criteria, you know, just say otherwise if that is not the case. So,
Well, I'm just going to say it's a good review, Madam Chair. So, yeah. So thank you.
And I will concur. I mean, I think that I really appreciate this review. It's giving some really good background, but there are some things where I might have some concerns, but I'm taking it all in at this time, I guess is the best thing I can say. I'm trying to best understand it as it relates to our constitutional criteria. And a part of why I want the data after this is to go back and take a closer look at that. And I think you've raised some important issues that relate to constitutional criteria regarding boundaries of cities and counties and communities, and doing our best to connect those. So this review, I think, has been really helpful for that. Okay.
well, I'll then continue to articulate my clarification that I believe that they adhere to the constitutional criteria, again, with the caveat that of course, there's room for significant improvement, which is the commitment of the commission moving forward and why we're doing public hearings.
Thank you. And I agree. Thank you.
Okay. With that, move forward, Doug, please.
Okay, we'll jump into District 17 then. Moving down to the Tucson region here. As you can see, this is a district that it has some Pinal County population. It has, there we go. So in Pima, we're getting Marana, Oro Valley, Catalina, Picture Rocks. You can see the whole list here. Tanque Verde, and then a large population, 55,000 plus, from Tucson, the Tucson Mountains, and Vail. In Pinal County, we're getting Saddlebrook, Saddlebrook Ranch, and a piece of Marana that crosses the county line, and then the Red Rock area. So that's the numbers by geography. This district is short on population at 7,900 short, or 3.33%. There we go. By citizen voting age population, we're at 15% Hispanic or Latino, and 78% non-Hispanic white, 2% Black or African American, 3% Asian American or Pacific Islander, and 1% Native American by both the citizen voting age population and single race voting age population. This district is at 9.9%, is not in our competitive spreads, but it is not too far outside. And of the 9 elections we're tracking, it does not have any swing elections. The Republican candidate won all 9. And it's not a district we're tracking for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. On compactness scores, it's obviously, you can see the area and perimeter scores there. Kind of you might call it a suburban district. So not as dense as some of the urban districts, or as small as some of the urban districts, but not too high either. Rioch, it's at 0.27. Convex Hull, it's 0.65. Groffman, it's 8.06. Schwartzburg, it's 2.27. And Polsby Popper's at 0.19%. Any comments or questions about this district?
Well, for the record, I will say that I think this district has alternatives that would better meet constitutional criteria for compactness and keeping communities together, communities of interest and communities in general. There are a lot of communities here who are split up in this district. So from a constitutional perspective, I think that this district could be redone to better meet our constitutional criteria.
From my perspective, I think this is an example of a district that requires real struggle with the constitutional criteria. I see it as, you know, an attempt to keep communities of interest together, to help those who, you know, identify as people that don't want to live in an urban city, a voice to elect, you know, a leader of their choice. And sometimes, you know, in order to empower communities of interest, you know, there are adjustments in the other criteria. And I think it's going to require, you know, additional study and thought. And each commissioner, you know, ultimately will need to decide for him or herself, you know, where things fall in terms of the constitutional criteria. But I think there's no easy answer here. But in my mind, it meets constitutional criteria because it is an explicit attempt to keep like-minded communities of interest together around an urban area. And the further you get out of you know, outside of urban areas to keep communities of interest together, sometimes the shapes aren't ideal. So obviously we'll be spending a lot more time, I think, debating the constitutional criteria and how to best configure lines in this area.
There's no other comments or questions. We'll jump into our final three for today. So with District 18. District 18, as you can see, is all Pima County. So there we go. So we're getting Costas Adobes, Catalina Foothills, and then the rest of the population is Tucson. On the number side, it's somewhat overpopulated by 5,600 or 2.36%. By citizen voting age population, it's 19% Hispanic or Latino, 73% non-Hispanic white, 4% non-Hispanic Black, 3% non-Hispanic Asian, and 1% non-Hispanic Native American by both citizen voting age population and single race voting age population. The vote spread in this district is 17.3%, and it does not have any swing elections in the 9. We're looking at the Democratic candidate won all 9. On compactness scores, its area and perimeter scores are low. The REAC score is 0.27, convex hull is 0.68, Groffman score is 7.66, Schwartzberg is 2.16, and Polsby-Popper is 0.21. Any comments or questions about this district? If not, we can jump to District 19.
The only thing I will mention is that I think that to better meet the constitutional requirements, District 17 and District 18 could be looked at.
Okay. Going to District 19. This takes us out into the southeast corner again. As you can see in the map, we've got all of Greenlee County, all of Graham except for the San Carlos Reservation lands, all of Cochise County, the kind of northeastern portion of Santa Cruz County, and then in Pima County. Challenging Mark to keep up with me here. He's doing great, Mark. Thank you. So, in Pima County, it gets, let's see, there we go. Corona de Tucson, Green Valley is obviously the big population. It gets Sarita, and then about 5,000 people in the southern tip of Tucson. Jumping over to the demographics, it's about just over 10,000 people short, or 4.23% short. Citizen voting age population, we're at 26% Hispanic or Latino, 68% non-Hispanic white, 3% non-Hispanic Black or African American, 2% non-Hispanic Asian or Pacific Islander, and 1% Native American by both citizen voting age population and by single race voting age population. On competitiveness, the vote spread is 19.1%, and there are no swing elections. The Republican candidate won all 9 elections here, and we're not tracking this for Voting Rights Act effectiveness. As a much more rural district, this district's polygon area score is quite high, as is its perimeter score. Its REOC score is 0.4, Convex Hull is 0.83, Groffman is 6.14, Forsberg is 1.73, and Polsby Popper is 0.33. Any questions or comments about District 19?
I think based on the public feedback we're hearing, there's, you know, some would like to see Santa Cruz County whole. It's divided in our map. I'm not sure that it's possible to keep it whole without compromising communities of interest. So I think that there's an explanation for why, an appropriate explanation for why Santa Cruz has been divided. It's to keep communities of interest organized better together. But obviously that's something we can continue to take a look at. And if there's ways to improve it, we will. But that was a trade-off that I think, you know, we noticed but needed to do.
Okay. And then offering folks some respite for my fascinating voice, I'm sure. We've got our last district for today. We'll finish up the remaining 10 legislative districts at the next business meeting. But we will jump into District 20 here. Again, this is entirely in the Tucson region, entirely in Pima County. And you can see we've got Flowing Wells, South Tucson, Tucson Mountains, Valencia West, and then the overwhelming share of the population is from the city of Tucson itself, about 194,000 of its 243,000 people. Looking at the demographics, District 20, we're overpopulated by 4,600 and change, or about 1.95%. Citizen voting age population, we are at 48% Hispanic or Latino, so this is a plurality Latino citizen voting age population district. We're at 42% non-Hispanic white, 4% Black or African American, 3% Asian American or Pacific Islander, and by CVAP, we're at 3% non-Hispanic Native American. By single race voting age population, we're at 2% non-Hispanic Native American. This district is not competitive. Its vote spread score is 52.7%, and there are no swing elections in this district. The Democratic candidate won all 9. This is a district that we're tracking for Voting Rights Act performance, and it is an effective district for electing the Latino preferred candidates, with the Latino Democratic candidate for governor winning with 70.8% of the vote, and the Latino Democratic candidate for Attorney General winning with 77.1% of the vote. So even though it's a little short of majority by CVAP, it clearly is an effective district. By the compactness scores, it's as a densely populated urban district, this is very low area and perimeter scores. On REOC, it's at 0.49. Convex Hull's at 0.72. Groffin's at 6.7. Schwartzburg's at 1.89. And Polsby Popper is 0.28%. Any comments or questions on this?
I think it meets constitutional criteria, and I think the lack of competitiveness is a result of the communities of interest. It's a majority minority district, Latino community, and it makes sense.
Could you clarify what you're outlining right now, Mark?
Yeah, that's the tribal reservation. I wanted to show why we have the straight line that goes up into District 20 from District 23. So I just wanted to show you guys that we are respecting the tribal nations reservation boundary.
And are there any people who live in that little piece right there?
In this strip right here, I can tell you. Hold on a second. In that area, 313. If I zoom in a little bit, hold on. This one census block takes up a lot of spots down there. So 313, if I remove this bottom census block here, so I actually miss a little bit of this straight line, it's 184.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other questions or comments, this will wrap up our legislative district review for today. And as noted before, we finished going through all the congressional districts.
Thank you, Doug. It's helpful to review them, and I think it will position us, as I said before, to, be in a better spot with our deliberations. And better trains the commissioners to be thinking through the lens of the 6 constitutional criteria as we, will again deliberate. So very helpful. If there's no other questions or comments from my colleagues, we can move on.
I just want to say thank you. I do find when we look at these as units, like several at a time, it really does help because we get so caught up as we're going through within each individual district. So I appreciate this review.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark and Doug. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 6. Discussion of future agenda item requests. I have one. It looks like we are likely to have one business meeting for sure before deliberation, and that will be in 2 weeks from today. In addition to, the polarization report and finishing the last 10 legislative districts. One thing that's on my mind is we have not made any decisions or really thoroughly discussed our approach to live public comments during the deliberation phase. And so maybe we should put this on the agenda just for us to have a thoughtful conversation about the ways in which we want to engage the public once the 30-day period is over and we have formally started the deliberations. Do we want live comments, not live comments, etc.? Okay.
And you're not asking us to opine on that today. You're asking us
No.
to put it on the agenda.
I'm suggesting that that might be a good agenda item for 2 weeks from today. We'll be skipping next week. I'll announce that again when we confirm our next meeting date. But, you know, to have a thoughtful conversation about what the best strategy is.
Okay.
Any other thoughts about a business item to add? Again, it may be our last business meeting before we start deliberations. So this is our opportunity to get any business in that you think is important. Okay. We'll move to agenda item number 7, announcements. Let's make a bunch of announcements. We are in the midst of our draft map tour. I encourage the public to check out our website and participate. Tonight, the main location will be in Cottonwood and also North Phoenix. Tomorrow, we'll be in Sun City and San Carlos. Please note that masks will be required in San Carlos. Both of these hearings will start at 6 p.m. on Thursday. Oh, and I think we're going to be in Wickenburg on Wednesday as well. On Thursday, 6 p.m., we'll be in Scottsdale and Anthem. Friday, we will have our virtual town hall hearing from noon to 2. And then Saturday at 10 a.m., we'll be in Prescott Valley and also Navajo County at the home of the Hopi tribe. And I believe masks are required on the reservation as well. And then we will, as I mentioned earlier, we will be skipping the business meeting next Tuesday. So we will have the week of Thanksgiving mostly off. And what I would also love to do, Brian and Lori, can we also confirm the deliberation dates that we have locked in for us so the public, our broader staff, and all of us can make sure that we have all of those dates earmarked and accounted for?
Let me just pull those up really quickly.
Okay, and I also may have just heard that public comments may have been down for this meeting. And if that's the case, if there's any issue with public comments, you can always go to the general website, the IRC comment page, and submit comments that way. You could email the commission. We accept comments in many different formats.
All right. So the dates of the decision meetings in December are December 6th, Monday, December 6th, Thursday, December 9th.
Can you say, do we determine the hours?
I don't know if we've decided on hours yet.
Okay,
We'll get them posted as soon as we do.
okay,
But I think we all talked about having them pretty much all day with a few exceptions.
okay.
Thursday, December 9th, Thursday, December 16th, Friday, December 17th, Monday, December 20th, Tuesday, December 21st, and Wednesday, December 22nd.
Okay, that's 7. Do we only have 7? Or did I miss one?
We will go back and double check the dates.
Okay, I thought we had 8, but we'll go back and double check, but let's just make sure to all keep those 7 dates for now clear.
You know, I was wondering whether it was also December. We have our business meeting. Well, I have something scheduled for December 7th, which I don't know if that's the business meeting or if it's a mapping meeting, deliberation meeting. But I know I have December 7th on my calendar
Okay,
as well, so.
maybe that's the 8th date and we're keeping it open for, I guess, determination of how to best use time. So if others have the 7th earmarked as well, let's keep that.
If that's going to be a decision date, then I changes my hotel rooms in Phoenix. So if it's going to be a business meeting, I would come back to Tucson and do it virtually. If it's going to be a decision day, I'll stay up and be there, which I can do. So as long as we just sort of make a decision, if that's going to be a decision day, which would be fine with me if we did.
Okay. We'll get this nailed down in the next few days.
Yep, and we'll get it posted on the website too.
Yeah. Okay. Any other announcements? So then agenda item number 8, next meeting date, in terms of a business meeting, it will be 2 weeks from today. And the public hearings we have announced and can be found, as always, on our website, irc.az.gov. Agenda item number 9, closing of public comments. We will now close public comment. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.018H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. With that, move to agenda item number 10, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I move to adjourn.
It's Commissioner York, I second.
If no further discussion, Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye. And with that, thank you everybody for your service, for your time. And I hope to see many of the public tonight in Cottonwood. That's where I'll be. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.